So, what do you think the next 5 years is going to look like?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I mean, there's so many changes I think that are going on all the time. But what I think actually is going to happen is I think Snapchat and other some of the other new platforms that are smaller now are going to be really taking over in the next 5 years. And the reason why I think that's the case is just because I think over the entire period of the internet, which hasn't been that long, but we've seen it. A lot of us have seen it through our lifetime, and I mean, I've seen it, as a conscious being 20 years ago when it first started. Is that there's going to be platforms out there that are that are started at the beginning. So let's say Google started at the beginning, and everybody was on Google, and everybody was advertising on Google. But then Google kind of got expensive to advertise, so then everybody switched to Facebook, and it was kind of a new platform. And now, it's a little bit saturated. I feel like everybody's on Facebook, and it's getting a little to be expensive to actually advertise on there. So I think now Snapchat is coming out with a lot of advertising opportunities, and I think this is, where the next big thing is going to be. And I think some of the smaller platforms are going to get bigger, and they're going to be in competition with Facebook. So, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of different things about this topic. It's something I'm really excited about. I think you nailed it on the head about Snapchat as an example. I think that, again, it's going to be where is people's attention at. So I don't think it's as important about the platform per se, but like where is the attention going to? And like you said with Facebook, it was revolutionary to Google's expensive advertising platform. So people started doing it on Facebook because one, the attention was there, which is the most important, and two, because it was lower cost, because it wasn't so crowded. And now you see that Facebook is getting really overcrowded, so people are moving away from there and moving towards Snapchat. And I think that Snapchat is definitely a industry leader and disruptor, and I love that because I think Snapchat is one of those ones that nobody really has seen coming, and I think it's going to dominate in the next 5 years moving forward. I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be really important to pay attention to some of the other types of platforms, such as things like what we were talking about in the last question when it comes to Uber and Airbnb and things like that. They're very self-governing, which is why you
Hmm.
haven't heard a ton of bad things happening on there compared to something like Craigslist, where you hear these horror stories, but you don't hear a lot of that on Uber or Airbnb because, again, you really, you put yourself out there, you burn somebody, that's going to be well known to everybody, including the company that you transacted through, who really governs that. But I think the people self-governing that is going to be much bigger than anything else. And I think that people really need to pay attention to things like Pokemon Go. And I'm going to use it because I don't think Pokemon Go is the platform that's going to be really important over the next 5 years. I think the augmented reality component of that platform is going to be an industry domination because it is so interactive with where you are and what your current situation is right there in that second. It is such a great way. I mean, let's take a look at Pokemon because that's something that literally happened almost overnight. Within 1 week of it being released, it went from zero to, over 50,000 people using it, which is insane. And, since then, there's been all these different stories of how businesses jumped in there if they did it soon enough because people were paying attention and started incorporating that because it was location based. Same thing as Snapchat, location based filters, geo filters, things like that. So I think it's going to be very much based on the personalized experience of the actual user, and it's going to take into consideration a lot more components like where are you at that second when you pick up your mobile phone. I
Hmm.
think that's another thing I should say. I'm assuming that people know, but I think mobile phone, like the mobile version of everything, is definitely the next 5 years. I think you are tied to your phone day and night. It doesn't matter what you're doing, where you're going. 90% of people have their phones on them. within arm's reach at all times. And if you don't think that, you're wrong. So I think mobile, I think platforms that are getting attention are the ones that are real time relating to you, and those are going to be game changers. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with your virtual reality part is that, and the mobile part too, of course, those are two things that just have been blowing up in the last, 5 years. So I think it's going to get even more so in the next 5 years. And in terms of mobile, I almost feel like, in the next 5 years, we're going to have like a chip in our head where we don't even need to have a mobile phone anymore. We're just going to have this chip that Apple is going to install in our heads, and we're just going to be like, oh, I got a call picking up. Okay, I got a call coming in. I got to pick it up. I mean, it's almost funny, but at the same time, it's almost like it could be a reality in a way.
Yeah.
So,
Well, again,
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think those are kind of interesting things that I think are coming. That with things changing so quickly, I think these are things that could potentially be the case in the future. Yeah. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just going to say that, I think that that's a very realistic thing. I think if you look back 5 years ago and you would have predicted where the market would have been at 5 years from then, everyone would have laughed at you. They would have been like, no way is that even possible. This isn't going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And look where we are today. So I definitely think we're getting closer and closer to the concept of the movie The Matrix every single day. And the thing with technology is that it gets faster every year. How quickly things can change is happening at a much faster pace than it was 5 years ago, for example. So I think in 5 years from now, the pace at which those things are changing is going to be lightning speed. So if you're a business, you have to be relevant, or you're not going to be a relevant business for much longer. So I thought that was a really good discussion. I think we have a question for our audience to end the show, and we'd like to hear your responses. What do you think has changed the most the last 5 years, and what, more importantly, do you think is going to be over the next 5 years from now? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, or feel free to email us. Gene, do you have anything else that you want to ask the audience?
No, I think that's great. Yeah, we would love to hear your feedback too, as the audiences, and what you think is going to be changing in the next 5 years, and what's changed in the last five. So, yeah, we look forward to your questions and your comments always. And if you have a question, please feel free to include that in the comments as well, and we can use that as a question for one of our next videos.
So keep sending us questions. Gene and Steven will keep answering them. Have a green day.
Awesome.
Okay.
I think that was good.
How long
was the video? Yeah, how long is the video?
12 minutes.